Welcome back to Restoring Sean, and today we are in episode 10, which means we are in the very last episode that takes place inside of the manor. In this episode, we're transforming the primary bedroom into a tranquil cubby and flipping the vibe of the only bathroom in the house. If you're new to the channel, I post a new video every Wednesday morning where I do some sort of bike trick into the work that went into restoring my very first house, the manor. All opinions are my own, never assume I have the correct answer, and did you know I can recite all of the dialogue from Jurassic Park with the movie muted?
Boy, do I hate being right all the time.
Well, now you do. Let's get started. The primary bedroom was a dark pit, plain and simple, but it did not start that way. Looking at the listing photo from 2013, we see that the space was drastically different from how I would find it 5 years later. There had been a closet once upon a time, albeit a short closet, that extended the length of the back part of the room where the roof angled downward. There's also lovely white paint on the window, creating an overall very crisp and clean look. But then it turned into this. The darkest blue color against a chocolate brown they painted the window frame, and the dark blue they painted the window shut with. You're probably not surprised at this point, and I know I'm not. I think the crafty lesbians are the ones that took the closet out, but they did an excellent job of it, and I do have to give them props for that. You could barely see on the ceiling where the new plaster met the old, and they spliced the floors in pretty well. The baseboards for trim that they put in were horrible, but that is beside the point. The day I moved in, we actually had a difficult time getting the headboard upstairs. I have a king-size bed, and the headboard is like 4 or 4.5 feet tall, and the stairwell has that 90-degree turn in it. So we got the headboard up about halfway and then it was stuck. As a solution, I had a couple friends helping me from Pottery Barn. Renee, who was doing the entire move with me, and then my friends Kara and Robin showed up as well. We brought the headboard to the backyard. I set up a ladder on the little stoop that was outside the back door from the kitchen. And we walked the headboard vertically up the ladder to the balcony off the primary bedroom. And then I believe it was Kara and Robin that were up there, and they tipped it towards them, and then we all went upstairs to shimmy it around and slide it into the primary bedroom. This is the same process that my friend Jonathan and I undertook when we removed the headboard from the bedroom 2 years later when I would be moving, sliding it onto the balcony, tipping it down to the ladder, walking it down, and then getting it back into the house. You've got to think creatively here. Initially when I moved in, I had the headboard against a very not feng shui wall. And I've mentioned it before, but if you're not familiar with feng shui or this is your first time hearing the term, your bed should be facing the door that you enter the room from so you can get the energy flow that's coming in through that door. I know it's kind of woo-woo, witchy sounding, whatever, believe if you want, but it just looks better when you can walk into a room and see the headboard rather than walk into a nightstand and someone sleeping. But I had the headboard against that wall largely because I knew the bedroom was going to be changing within a couple of weeks when I would paint it, and the bed would be in a different position probably. Also, at the time, I wanted my dresser in the room, and this was the only configuration that made sense to have it, which was against the wall where the ceiling came down. In that position, you couldn't put any decorative accessories on top of it because the angle was too low for the ceiling. So that was also another indicator that the room was just going to have the bed, and that was it. Once everything was moved in and the truck had been returned, the very first thing that I did in the house was assemble the bed. And when it was put together, I dropped to it and fell asleep for like an hour and woke up to find the cats looking cute despite their stress at a new living situation yet again. This photo shows a bit better the nook where the balcony door was. There are some brown wood strips down the inside of the door, and those held a metal grid inside to stop people from going on the balcony since there was no railing. Part of me wanted to install a railing outside because I just thought, well, you should finish the space, and that's not interior square footage, but that's square footage that you can use. Ultimately, I never put a railing on there. I think if I had stayed in the house, I would have, but it didn't matter at the time. This corner also had a jet black 8-foot tall armoire in it, that with the size of it, it prevented the door from opening all the way to the balcony. I kept that in place for maybe 2 weeks with my clothes in it, and then decided I'd rather have that in the office, so I managed to kind of tilt it toward me and shimmy it out the door into the hall and down to the office. And then it lived in the office for a few months, until the winter at least, where I disassembled the whole thing and yeeted it off the balcony into the backyard for it to be burned sometime in the spring when the snow was melted. And then it was time for painting! As you're so used to hearing, here is the comparison of Sherwin-Williams flat ceiling paint in pure white against the glossy ivory that it had been. And then a much wider view with the ceiling actually finished. The ceiling fan in here was actually a really nice one, but you can see that even with the light on, it felt like a cave in the room. I'm also notorious for not really having a well-prepared working space when I'm painting. I will balance open paint cans on whatever I can, if that means a bed or there are pillows underneath or stacks of clothes. I will balance a paint can on it. I've gotten much better about this now, specifically when I'm hired to paint someone's space. I'm not taking chances, obviously, but you need to start best behaviors at home. So we're working on it. And then this was the paint color I went with, keeping with my theme of water-named colors for the upstairs, this one being Drizzle by Sherwin-Williams in a matte finish. It was the only color in the house that I hated, and that was because, as I mentioned all the way back in episode 1 of Restoring Sean, it reminded me too much of a color I painted in my childhood bedroom. This color is too light teal for me, and it was ruined by cupcake shops in the 2000s that would use teal as their fun pop of color in the title of their shop, or you know what I mean? Like, here's a couple pictures that I'll toss up as an example. I briefly thought of repainting it, but I never got around to doing so, and that's all right. The color, while I didn't like it, it wasn't a bad color, and it still lent itself to being a cool, calming space that was much brighter than it had been before. This picture also shows these awesome frames I got from Pottery Barn at a crazy clearance price, and I loved them so much that when I received them, I went to buy more, and they were sold out. So, damn that, but I still have them. I love them. This illustrates what I said in episode 7 about gallery walls. More is more. And the point is to cover wall space, not highlight your expanse of painted blankness. Once winter came around, I began the long process of painting all of the trim in the house, beginning with the primary bedroom. Here you can see the colors much better that the ladies before me painted the windows shut with. I had to take a razor blade to hack through the layers of paint. Sidebar, the windows may have been painted shut before them. But eventually the windows budged, and that was awesome because in the summer, I had not been able to put an AC window unit in there because the window couldn't open, so I just suffered through the heat of 2018. Here, the window is primed, and you can notice at the top of the photo the damage to the wall from putting the drapery rod mount in the wrong spot. I am not perfect, I will tell you so at any chance I get, and sometimes I mount things crooked, or I don't put the bracket for a drapery rod as far out as it should be because I eyeball it sometimes instead of actually measuring. Again, if you hire me to do this for you, it will be perfect and I will make sure of it. But in my own space, I'm like, well, let's find out. When the priming was finished, I used Sherwin-Williams Emerald Enamel Trim Paint in pure white and used the same paint in iron ore to coat the door to the balcony. Once spring came, it was just so nice to have the door open and to listen to the birds in the massive oak tree out back. This really was one of my favorite spaces in the house, and while I didn't love the paint color, it was just calming. It was calming to go to bed in there at night. It was calming to wake up in the morning. It was good. In this photo, you can see the finished look of the room for the 1-year anniversary of owning the manor. The headboard butted up against the ceiling, as you can see it sloping down behind the lamps still. So there was like a 1.5-foot gap behind it that the cats would run behind and occasionally hide in if they were freaked out about, gunshots outside. I don't know what happened to that velvet pillow. January of 2020 meant it was time to start working on the floors in the house. And as I have said many times before, this work started in the primary bedroom and it was where I learned what not to do. A couple of quick things in this photo. Toward the back of the room, you can see where the floors were spliced in. Not perfect, but not bad. Here's a close-up, though, of the bullshit with the baseboards, though. Also, do you notice all of the splattered paint on the floor here? That's not from me, and that's how it was through the entire house. Lastly in the photo is the original floor register, which you obviously could open and close to control the furnace air coming in. And it was always closed. Always. With a magnetic sheet over it and a pillow on top of that. Because let me tell you, when the furnace was on in the winter, that air shaft went straight into the furnace. And the hot air coming up was like a motherfucking jet engine. This bedroom got so swelteringly hot in the winter that you felt like you were sweating through the mattress. Anyway, floors. Here's the photo after I stained the floor. At first glance, it's not awful, but let's zoom in. This is the room where I learned not to overlap your stain because it looks awful. And once the polyurethane was on, it was even more awful. Thank Jeebus for rugs and a bed.
Well, let me tell you.
Because I was so mortified by how that looked, and I did not want to take the time and energy to sand it all down again to restain it. So I just went with it. But now we come to the second bat story, which I mentioned in the last episode. On August 9th, 2020, I woke up in the middle of the night to a fluttering sound. Normally, I am really not a light sleeper, so the fact that I woke up to this told me something was wrong. I opened my eyes and I immediately knew what was wrong because the cats were all puffed up and staring, and I just swatted their butts so that they would run out the door, and I ducked and rolled out of the bedroom. Stumbling into the hallway, making sure the cats were out of the way, I shut the door and kind of calmed myself. I knew it was going to be a bat in the room. After a moment, I cracked open the bedroom door and flipped on the light, and I could see the bat on the drapes. Without even thinking, I went to my office and grabbed the biggest book I had that was not packed up yet, Roxaboxen, which is a great children's book if you've never read it. So I went back to my room because I was just gonna nail this fucker that was now on my bed where my head had been moments earlier. It took flight to me, and I whacked it out of the air. I opened the balcony door, probably screaming and squealing, and used the broom to flick it out to the balcony and shut the door. I then had to change my sheets to remove the germs. I washed the book cover off to remove any bacteria that the bat may have deposited on it. And then I went back to bed. In the morning, though, I felt so bad.
I woke up in the middle of the night to a bat flying around my bedroom. And after a lot of screaming and dancing around, I successfully took a children's book and whacked it out the door, where it's still laying here and it's not dead, but I feel like I probably did something to it and it's not going to make it. But here's the bat, and I'm not getting any closer to it because I don't want to get the rabies, but I really don't know what to do. So yeah, that's that. See, he's alive. I hate this.
It was going to rain that day, so I covered the bat with a shoebox that had some holes in it. And the balcony was also shaded through the day, so I knew it wasn't going to get too hot inside the shoebox. Plus, there was a large enough hole on the back side of it that I had cut open that the bat could get out if it decided to, which bats don't fly during the day, and I know that now. But I just thought, I don't want to imprison it, and I don't want it to die in here, so if it can get out and wants to, then, by all means, and Godspeed. So I went to work, and when I came home at the end of the day, this was how the rest of it shook out.
Okay, here is the bat update. So, the bat, codename Manny, made it through the day. I had a shoebox on him that a pair of high heels came in for Halloween. And he survived the rain and everything, and I called my good friend Heather, and she advised me on what to do. So he is going to stay in a cardboard box tonight with the garage door open. Hopefully he skadooches, but since I'm working all day tomorrow, I'm going to leave the garage open, and if he has not taken flight, she's going to pick him up tomorrow and take him to the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center. So that's good news, and he's very moving, so I'm hoping that he just flies away tonight. But he was also very chattery, chit-chat, echolocation, whatever the hell. And he wasn't happy with me, so that's the update. Hopefully it's the last time you see Manny.
I put a long stick in the box and set it in the garage so that any predators hopefully wouldn't get to it. And in the morning, Manny was gone. I don't want to say that I'm a bat savior because it was me that knocked the lights out of him, but look at the good I do. And finally, we've got the listing photos of the primary bedroom. I don't know why the hell I didn't think to iron the duvet cover because I absolutely wince when I look at these now and think, damn, how lazy was I? I would never repeat that mistake in another house, that is for sure. But the bedroom turned out fabulous, if you ask me. It was at the back of the house, obviously, but it was so insulated that it was always a silent sleep. You couldn't hear the noise from the street out front, the corner of the block, or even the alleyway. And then lastly, here's me the morning of moving day with my coffee and Paolo walking around behind me. Notice the towel wedged between the window sashes, which was how the bat got in that time and probably in the office as well. They really need no space to squeeze in, not to freak you out, but they don't. And now, the moment you have all been waiting for, we move on to the final room inside of the manor, the bathroom. Once upon a time, the bathroom looked like a serene space. They had this cute dresser in it. It was a dull white room, but still a calm one, which is what you want when you're tired and want to relax or start your day, right? Well, cue the crafty lesbians and their Skittle Power lime green. It was a shock to the senses to see that color, and in person, it was worse because it was splattered with shampoo and conditioner and soap scum. I had to wash the walls down several times to get them ready for painting, because if you paint over anything that's oily or greasy, as some of you may know, it comes through the paint, and it is several layers of paint that you have to put on that before it covers it completely. And even after washing the walls, there were a couple areas that always looked like they had watermarks running down, which was whatever the hell I had painted over. I didn't get started on working in the bathroom immediately because there were several pertinent things that needed to happen in there that I just felt like they could wait a little bit longer. But when it was time to work in there in September of 2018, I started with my trusty ceiling paint. I didn't want the angled ceilings to be the same color as the walls, so I painted them to break up the space more. That didn't prevent me from cracking my head on the larger angled wall more than several times over the next 2 years, but here we are. And then Sophia was my typical dancing mascot in the bathroom, usually once a shower was done, and I've never figured out why she does it. Usually it's when you're not looking at her, so maybe it's just for attention, but I don't know. She'll do it sometimes when you're staring right at her. She'll just start dancing. I also broke a mirror in the bathroom process. Not the shitty mirror that was already in there, but a new mirror that I got from West Elm. I feel like it maybe tipped away from the wall and hit something. I know it was my fault, but I don't recall how it happened. This probably explains my life and luck since that happened, but good news is I would only have one more year of that bad luck right now, so let's go with it. It was time to finally start painting the bathroom walls, which meant everything had to come down. The walls were weirdly lumpy in here because they forced the sheetrock against the old plumbing stack rather than frame away from it. And it was like this on the other side of the wall too, in the stairwell. The color I used in the bathroom was Cape Verde from Sherwin-Williams in a matte finish, and it was my absolute favorite color in the house. Also, as stated earlier, please note the absolute chaos of me painting a room back in the day, and still probably to this day I would paint in that chaos. As with all other rooms, the electrical switches and outlets needed to be replaced and updated. This photo illustrates something I mentioned back in the kitchen episode, which is why you shouldn't paint outlets or outlet plates, because it chips and flecks off and just looks dumb. More dumb than chocolate brown paint, at least. But look at this beautiful pink color. It was utterly gorgeous, just the perfect deep teal emerald color. And what's funny is that for how much I love it, I have never used it again. Maybe I will in this house in the upstairs bathroom now that I'm thinking about it, but well, I'm several months away from that project beginning, so I guess we can find out together if that's what happens. Also, here's a quick note on clawfoot bathtubs. Please preserve them if you can. I know they're not all wonderful. Mine at least was. I am 6'4". I am built extremely wide like a brick shit house, and I fit perfectly into that bathtub. And when you are as big of an individual as I am, you really appreciate those details. Plus, the historic factor of having a giant iron bath that is 114 years old. When painting was done, I was ready to replace the toilet. It was a low toilet with a round bowl, and I just didn't want that. As I said, I am 6'4". So what I wanted was a tall toilet with an elongated bowl. The problem with the toilet was that it sat on original wood floors, and over the course of 100 years, they had warped and settled a bit, so they just weren't level anymore. And as you can see here, it just wasn't a great situation. I ended up cutting a piece of wood to shimmy under the new toilet, helping it to be level and to make sure it didn't rock, and then voila, here's the new one from American Standard. It flushes up to 18 golf balls at once, if that's important to you, and it is called the Titan, appropriately. I've used this exact same toilet in all of my houses, which by the time this house is done, that'll be 8 times. So they're like $250 a pop, so that's $2,000 on toilets. Sure, why not? In November of 2018, my dad came out to visit the manor and to help me with some electrical work that needed to happen upstairs, as well as reversing the swing of the door to the bathroom. Here he is up in the attic getting ready to cut the hole where the new hallway can light would be. The bathroom can lights seemed to be replaced because they were not sealed for the bathroom, meaning that in the winter, cold air could come down through the can lights, as well as steam from the shower could go up into the attic, which is not something that you want. I also wanted a sconce added in the bathroom next to the mirror because the can light above the mirror and sink cast such strong shadows on your face that having directional light in the morning just made you see everything much better, and it just felt like a happier experience rather than getting, dressed and ready in gloom. It was a nightmare feeding the wire down through the wall because the angle of the ceiling continued into the attic and it was really difficult finding the way down. My dad also lost a tape measure and screwdriver down the channels of these walls on this trip, and from his immense grief, he still brings that up to this day. The other big project, though, was reversing the door. And in this photo, my dad is chiseling out of the door frame for the hinges to be on the inside instead of the hallway side. This is a picture of me being stupid while he worked, and then this is the door itself getting some chisel work done because the hinges changed for this as well. We had to shave off about 1 inch from the bottom of the door because of the warping of the bathroom floor. And when it would shut, at first when it would shut, it was scraping along the floor, so we had to rectify that. But then when I put the rug back down, it was hitting the rug. So in the end, it was about 1 inch that had to come off the bathroom door. But then it was hung and fully out of the way going forward. A couple of months later, it was time to start fixing the window and the window frame. The frame didn't need a ton of work, but it was missing some pieces on the left side and the top. And the sash cord had come free at some point over the years, which meant the window wasn't attached to the weight that was in the wall. So when you would open it up, it would just let itself kind of slide back down. Here's the window repaired and primed, ready for the enamel paint. I wouldn't work on the baseboards in here for another year, which would be when I started sanding the floors. If you recall from the last video, I used the spare bits of baseboards from the bathroom to finish off the nook that was in the office. Additionally, I've mentioned all of the latches that I installed on the doors upstairs, with this being a close-up look at that. And I did this because while most of the door mechanisms had the ability to lock, they required a skeleton key that no longer existed for the house. But then here's the bathroom for the 1-year anniversary. That cabinet is still in my house. It came from IKEA and I love it. I don't know if I'll have continued use for it here once the upstairs bathroom has been remodeled, but it can always exist in my basement. Also, notice the baseboards are entirely missing at this point. I took the old mirror down and attached a medicine cabinet from Pottery Barn because there was no storage otherwise for small accessories. And here you can also see the sconce that I attached for the additional lighting. I hired a plumber to come out and replace the very basic looking shower stack because the knobs were clearly from the 1960s and the faucet was incredibly corroded. This is the new version with the water lines from the wall redone and the new vintage looking faucet, handles, and shower stack. After that, a couple months later, it was time for the floors. And that process started a little backward because for some reason I installed and painted the baseboards first. I don't know why, I just did. Getting the trim behind the bathtub was difficult, but it worked. And in this shot, you can see the bathroom in a state of readiness. I stained the side on the left first, as you can see, and polyurethaned it so that I could have a solid space to move the bathtub and the toilet when the time came to do that side. And no, there are no pictures of that half. Shockingly, there are no pictures of that. For this side, though, I had to work quickly, and it sucked. We took showers the night before and used the toilet early in the morning, and then it had to get removed so I could quickly sand the floors down, stain them, and polyurethane them in a single day, you guys. Just one day. Like, literally, this photo with the tub on a bath mat so it didn't scratch the floors and the toilet reinstalled was taken at like 4:30 in the afternoon. But that meant the bathroom was finished. Later, in 2020, when the listing photos returned, they represented the bathroom for precisely what it was: tranquil and clean and gorgeous. I adored this bathroom and the clawfoot tub that was manufactured in December of 1913. It's hard to tell, but I painted the little orbs the clawed feet hold onto with gold paint, just for a little dazzle. I think the most important thing about this bathroom, and it's something that you can't really fix, you either have it or you don't, is just how fucking great the water pressure was. It was heaven. And with that, we are officially wrapped on the inside of the manor. Gone are the days of wandering around and seeing what I did inside the walls, because next week, we go outside. If you liked what you saw today and think I did an okay enough job, please click the like button below and then subscribe for future videos. Next week, Wednesday, we will begin exploring the outside and we will start with the garage and all of the horrors that it contains. Take care, and I will see you then.